Okay, guys, had to take a break for a second. Also, didn't want to make it too long so it would take forever to upload. But anyway, we just left off again this book at the bottom of page 44 and 45. Two important things about the conversation with Mildred. First of all, Mildred has just told Montag that Clarice is dead. Remember, he was worried. He said he felt like something was off when she didn't come out to walk with him to the subway like she did every afternoon. And he just didn't, hadn't heard from her. But look at how flippant Mildred is. Oh, she's dead. She's hit by a car. Like it was nothing. Because in this society, what did Clarice say? Children die all the time. Killed in car accidents, murdered by each other. So her death was just another number in the grand scheme of things of children that died. Probably out walking and was hit by a car. But the other thing that was significant is that Montag knew that the hound was outside of his house at this point. Remember, it's been reacting to him in the firehouse, and he's been trying to avoid it. But at this point, now he feels it's outside his house. So there is something going on. All right, we're going to continue. He had chills and fever in the morning. "You can't be sick," said Mildred. He closed his eyes over the hotness. "Yes." "But you were all right last night." "No, I wasn't all right." He heard the relatives shouting in the parlor. Mildred stood over his bed curiously. He felt her there. He saw her without opening his eyes, her hair burnt by chemicals to a brittle straw, her eyes with a kind of cataract unseen but suspect far behind the pupils, the reddened, pouting lips, the body as thin as a praying mantis from dieting, and her flesh like white bacon. He could remember her no other way. It's not a flattering picture of his wife. Like her hair is bleached so much that it's almost like straw, that she's so thin from dieting that it's not a healthy look. She's very, very pale, wears way too much makeup. "Will you bring me aspirin and water?" "You've got to get up," she said. "It's noon. You've slept 5 hours later than usual." "Will you turn the parlor off?" he asked. "That's my family." "Will you turn it off for a sick man?" "I'll turn it down." She went out of the room and did nothing to the parlor and came back. "Is that better?" "Thanks." "It's my favorite program," she said. "What about the aspirin?" "You've never been sick before." She went away again. "Well, I'm sick now. I'm not going to work tonight. Call Beatty for me." "You acted funny last night," she returned, humming. "Where's the aspirin?" He glanced at the water glass she handed him. "Oh." She walked to the bath again. "Did something happen?" "A fire is all." "I had a nice evening," she said, in the bathroom. "What doing?" "The parlor." "What was on?" "Programs." "What programs?" "Some of the best ever." "Who?" "Oh, you know, the bunch." "Yes, the bunch, the bunch, the bunch." He pressed at the pain in his eyes, and suddenly the odor of kerosene made him vomit. Mildred came in humming. She was surprised. "Why'd you do that?" He looked with dismay at the floor. "We burned an old woman with her books." "It's a good thing that rug's washable." She fetched a mop and worked on it. "I went to Helen's last night." "Couldn't you get the shows in your own parlor?" "Sure, but it was nice visiting." She went out into the parlor. He heard her singing. "Mildred," he called. She returned, singing, snapping her fingers softly. "Aren't you going to ask me about last night?" he said. "What about it?" "We burned 1,000 books. We burned a woman." "Well?" The parlor was exploding with sound. "We burned copies of Dante and Swift and Marcus Aurelius." "Wasn't he a European?" "Something like that." "Wasn't he a radical?" "I never read him." "He was a radical." Mildred fiddled with the telephone. "You don't expect me to call Captain Beatty, do you?" "You must. Don't shout." "I wasn't shouting." He was up in bed, suddenly enraged and flushed, shaking. The parlor roared in the hot air. "I can't call him. I can't tell him I'm sick." "Why?" "Because you're afraid," he thought. A child feigning illness, afraid to call because a moment's discussion, the conversation would run so. "Yes, Captain, I feel better already. I'll be in at 10 o'clock tonight." "You're not sick," said Mildred. Montag fell back in bed. He reached under his pillow. The hidden book was still there. "Mildred, How would it be if, well, maybe I quit my job a while? You want to give up everything after all these years of working because one night some woman and her books? You should have seen her, Millie. She's nothing to me. She shouldn't have had books. It was her responsibility. She should have thought of that. I hate her. She's got you going, and next thing you know, we'll be out. No house, no job, nothing. You weren't there. You didn't see, he said. There must be something in books, things we can't imagine to make a woman stay in a burning house. There must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. She was simple-minded. She was as rational as you and I, more so perhaps, and we burned her. That's water under the bridge. No, not water. Fire. You ever seen a burned house? It smolders for days. Well, this fire will last me the rest of my life. God, I've been trying to put it out in my mind all night. I'm crazy with trying. You should have thought of that before becoming a fireman. Thought, he said? Was I given a choice? My grandfather and father were firemen. In my sleep, I ran after them. The parlor was playing a dance tune. This is the day you go on the early shift, said Mildred. You should have gone 2 hours ago. I just noticed. It's not just that woman that died, said Montag. Last night I thought about all that kerosene I've used in the past 10 years, and I thought about books, and for the first time I realized that a man was behind each one of the books. A man had to think them up. A man had to take a long time to put them down on paper, and I'd never even thought that before. He got out of bed. It took some man a lifetime maybe to put some of his thoughts down, looking around at the world and life, and then I come along in 2 minutes and boom, it's all over. Let me alone, said Mildred. I didn't do anything. Let you alone? That's all very well and good, but how can I leave myself alone? We need not to be let alone. We need to be really bothered once in a while. How long is it since you were really bothered? And so about something important, about something real. Now, I want you to look at Mildred's attitude right now. I want you to think about how she's responding to her husband. Does she act like she even cares what he thinks? Like she even is listening to what he's saying? All she's worried about is the fact that he's at home, so she's not able to go watch her parlor family like she wants to. And that's her defense. Well, that's my family. People on a screen. That's who she claims is her family. Isn't that a sad state of affairs? But then think about it. This is Ray Bradbury's version of the future. But think about where we are. How many of you spend more time looking at things on a screen than you spend with real people? It's the way things are shifting in our culture. But the thing is the fact that Mildred feels no sympathy for the fact that this woman died the night before. Because remember, Mildred is all about herself. She's not worried about anybody but Mildred. And right now, Montag has messed up her day because he hasn't gone to work. She can't even remember to get him aspirin when he asks. And when he throws up, she's like, why'd you even do that? She doesn't care. It's only about her. And the thing is, again, is that this is sort of symbolism for the way that some people are today. And then he shut up, for he remembered last week and the 2 white stones staring up at the ceiling and the pump snake with the probing eye and the 2 soap-faced men with the cigarettes moving in their mouths when they talked. But that was another Mildred. That was a Mildred so deep inside this one and so bothered, really bothered, that the 2 women had never met. He turned away. See, he knows after her episode last week where she won't even acknowledge the fact that she tried to commit suicide, he knows that nothing he says is going to matter to her, that she doesn't care. So it's kind of like having an argument with yourself or talking to a wall. It's pointless. It doesn't matter. Mildred said, well, now you've done it. Out front of the house. Look who's here. I don't care. There's a Phoenix car just drove up and a man in a black shirt with an orange snake stitched on his arm coming up the front walk. Captain Beatty? He said. Captain Beatty. Montag did not move, but stood looking into the cold whiteness of the wall immediately before him. Go let him in, will you? Tell him I'm sick. Tell him yourself. She ran a few steps this way, a few steps that, and stopped, eyes wide, when the front door speaker called her name, softly, softly. Miss Montag, someone here, Miss Montag, someone's here, fading. Montag made sure the book was well hidden behind the pillow, climbed slowly back into bed, arranged the covers over his knees and across his chest, half sitting, and after a while Mildred moved and went out of the room, and Captain Beatty strolled in, his hands in his pockets. "Shut the relatives up," said Beatty, looking around at everything except Mildred and Montag and his wife. This time Mildred ran. The yammering voices stopped yelling in the parlor. So her husband repeatedly asks her to turn it down, turn it off, and she won't do it. Captain Beatty, she immediately jumps and does whatever he tells her to. Captain Beatty sat down in the most comfortable chair with a peaceful look on his ruddy face. He took time to prepare and light his brass pipe and puff out a great smoke cloud. "Just thought I'd come by and see how the sick man is." "How'd you guess?" Beatty smiled his smile, which showed the candy pinkness of his gums and the tiny candy whiteness of his teeth. "I've seen it all. You were going to call for a night off." Montag sat in bed. "Well," said Beatty, "take the night off." He examined his external matchbox, the lid of which said, "Guaranteed 1,000,000 lights in this igniter," and began to strike the chemical match abstractedly. Blow out, strike, blow out, strike, speak a few words, blow out. He looked at the flame. He blew. He looked at the smoke. "When will you be well?" "Tomorrow. Next day, maybe. First of the week." Beatty puffed his pipe. "Every fireman sooner or later hits this. They only need understanding to know how the wheels run. Need to know the history of our profession. They don't feed it to the rookies like they used to. Damn shame." Puff. "Only fire chiefs remember it now." Puff. "I'll let you in on it." Mildred fidgeted. Beatty took a full minute to settle himself in and think back for what he wanted to say. "When did it all start, you ask, this job of ours? How did it come about? Where? When?" "Well, I'd say it really got started about this thing called the Civil War, even though our rule book claims it was founded earlier. The fact is, we didn't get along well until photography came into its own. Then motion pictures in the early 20th century, radio, television, things began to have mass." Montag sat in bed, not moving. "And because they had mass, they became simpler," said Beatty. "Once books appealed to a few people, here, there, everywhere. They could afford to be different. The world was roomy, but then the world got full of eyes and elbows and mouths. Double, triple, quadruple population. Films and radios, magazines, books leveled down to a sort of paste-pudding norm. Do you follow me?" "I think so." Beatty peered at the smoke pattern he had put out on the air. "Picture it. 19th century man with his horses, dogs, carts, slow motion. Then in the 20th century, speed up your camera. Books cut shorter, condensations, digests, tabloids. Everything boils down to the gag, the snap ending." "Ooh, snap ending," Mildred nodded. "Classics cut to 15-minute radio shows, then cut again to fill a 2-minute book column, winding up at last as a 10 or 12-line dictionary resume. I exaggerate, of course. The dictionaries were for reference, but many were those whose sole knowledge of Hamlet— you know the title, certainly, Montag. It's probably only a faint rumor of a title to you, Mrs. Montag— whose sole knowledge, as I say, of Hamlet was a 1-page digest in a book that claimed, 'Now at last you can read all the classics. Keep up with your neighbors.' Do you see? Out of the nursery and into the college and back to the nursery. That's your intellectual pattern for the past 5 centuries or more." Now, real quick, I want you to think about what he's saying. He's saying that people stopped reading books because they had other things that they could do. Why read the book when you can watch the movie? Why even watch the movie when you can watch the film trailer, much shorter? Why read the book when you can read the Cliff's Notes or the Spark Notes? Why even do that when you can go online, find Wikipedia, it's got a paragraph? So what he's saying is the fact that people stop doing things like reading books because life is simpler with mass media. Did you also notice he was making fun of Mildred? Yeah, he doesn't think very highly of her. Mildred arose and began to move around the room, picking things up and putting them down. Beatty ignored her and continued. "Speed up the film, Montag, quick. Click, pick, look, eye, now, flick, here, there, swift, pace, up, down, in, out, why, how, who, what, where, bang, smack, wallop, bing, bong, boom. Digest, 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 digest. Politics? 1 column, 2 sentences, a headline. Then, in midair, all vanishes. Were all man's mind a roundabout so fast under the punting hands of publishers, exploiters, broadcasters, that the centrifuge flings off all unnecessary time-wasting thought? What do you think about that? Do you see any similarities with what's happening in our current culture? We talked about this. Why read the book when you watch the movie? But one of the things he's talking about here is that sometimes the media tells you what they want you to know. And some people won't even go in and research the information. They just trust the media. Wasn't that a problem in our most recent election? Is that the media seemed to be one-sided, or one news channel would follow and sort of support one candidate, and the other news media would follow and support another candidate, and that regardless of which candidate you supported, somebody was always biased toward them. There was nothing that was actually pure fact, just somebody giving an unbiased opinion or unbiased coverage. It doesn't exist anymore. That's the world he was describing, and unfortunately part of it's where we are now. Mildred smoothed the bedclothes. Montag felt his heart jump and jump again as she patted his pillow. Right now she was pulling at his shoulder to try to get him to move so she could take the pillow out and fix it nicely and put it back, and perhaps cry out and stare, or simply reach down her hand and say, "What's this?" and hold up the hidden book with touching innocence. School is shortened, discipline relaxed, philosophies, histories, languages dropped, English and spelling gradually neglected, finally almost completely ignored. Life is immediate, the job counts, pleasure lies all about after work. Why learn anything save pressing buttons, pulling switches, fitting nuts and bolts?